Bert come forward. Let's open our meeting.
Oh, they built here.
Okay.
Brian's here.
Brian's here. I'm going to ask Dr. Ron Swain if he'll come up and give the invitation because evidently Bill Bryce is not here.
Many of you may know Bill is a long-time member of our club and former district governor and has led much leadership in our organization. And he is under the weather, I think, at this time in his life. So I'm honored to step in his stead. Let us pray. O holy and loving God, it's again that these men and women gather for food and fellowship, but most especially to celebrate their service above self. We give you thanks for this gathering, for this place, this city called Georgetown, for this nation in which we live. We pray your blessings upon the gathering and the food that we consume for the nourishment of our physical bodies as we continue to do your work and will. It is in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swain. I appreciate you jumping in there for me. Okay, Brian.
As we say the pledge today, think about the people who are going to be, what's the word? Think about the people that we are going to be remembering and celebrating over the next few months. And think about it, let's say the pledge maybe a little bit more excitement than normal.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we've got a few milestones today. Let's see here. Well, that's interesting. We've got 3 people that were born on the same day, September 28th. That's kind of strange. So, Steve Benton, Delta Jolly, Janelle McNeil. Happy birthday, September 28th. Spouses' birthdays aren't any. Anniversaries. Glenn and Susan Beck, 36 years on October the 2nd. Very good. Club anniversaries. Gonzalo Garza, 41 years. Amazing. Amazing. September 30th. Bill Bryce, 31 years. Brian Jameson, 18 years on October the 1st. Dennis Pepin, 11 years. Gary Brown, 3 years. And Mike Douglas, 5 years. Salute.
Thank you all so much. I will let you know that Henry, who is filming our meeting today, he puts it on YouTube, and some folks use it for makeup. So thank you, Henry, for that. I appreciate it. Okay, it's time to welcome our guests. If you're a guest today, would you please stand and let us. We'll start out over here with Amanda. Amanda is a guest at Barista Austin, and she wasn't able to be here, so Amanda Scavo is here to join us today, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much, Amanda. Welcome.
Hi, it's my pleasure to reintroduce Jessica Hiller, who has moved here from San Antonio, and she is looking to reestablish in a new organization, but she has already jumped in and gotten onto the Field of Honor Committee. So please welcome her.
I have as my guest today a guy named Gene Davenport. Gene, could you stand up, please? Trying to get Gene to join our club. No, I'm just kidding. For those that don't know him, Gene's a longtime member of our club, was past president, was past district governor, is probably one of the best Rotarians I know. Thanks for coming, Gene.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to introduce a good friend of mine from Danville, California. He and I were in Rotary at Walnut Creek, California. And he's thinking about moving here because he's from San Antonio, but he says, man, I miss that California weather, so it might be tough.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. We have just a few announcements. We have an early night first night, some knighting ceremonies coming up next Friday, so please do everything you can to try and be there to support the students. Mitchell Elementary is at 8:15 and Pearl Elementary is going to be at 1:30, so please put that on your calendar. We have an upcoming grant build on October the 13th, and you can see Myra about that. Allison, I don't know if she's here or not, but I know that she is taking ads for the Patriot Ball program. So if you all would like to buy an ad for that, please see Allison or go online and order it. Rodney Morales, the next blood drive is coming up on Friday, October the 19th. David Messerang, do you have some announcements?
Good afternoon. I'd like to call your attention to 3 applications that are over on the table. Those, and if you're here, please stand up so people know who you are. Miranda Bradley, Lisa Grant, I know Lisa's here, I saw her, and David Sandler. You didn't see David come in. Miranda, this is the second week, and Lisa and David are third week, or first week, I'm sorry. We are initiating a new member care initiative in the membership committee. We haven't, I forgot what the name of it was right offhand, but we are going to start calling people that haven't been here for a while because things happen in people's lives, and I think most of us would like to know what's going on with our friends. Or if you're on an extended vacation, we'll find that out too. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Okay, and Jeannie has a few things she'd like to talk about.
Hello, Rotarians and guests. A couple of things before I go into another very wonderful announcement today. First of all, on your tables, you are going to find a little half sheet here. Will everybody kind of pick one of those up, please? Take a look at this because this is your reservation form to give to Carol for the multi-club Rotary luncheon at the Field of Honor. It isn't one of those days that you can just show up and attend. You must have a reservation for that meeting. But I'm also asking you to please bring a veteran or first responder that you want to honor that day, because we are doing a very special honoring and appreciation for all the veterans that you bring, and especially, and if you're a veteran, you will be honored as well. So between now and, well, for 2 weeks, we're going to hold the reservations to just our club, and after 2 weeks, we're opening into the rest of the district. There's only going to be about 260 seats available. So it's all in the tent at the Field of Honor. Please get your reservation in early. Carol will bill your account. And notice that I've asked for your name, the number of guests you're bringing, and your guests' names if possible, so that she can check them in at the meeting. Okay? Secondly, there's also a multi-flag purchase form on your table. If you want to order a bunch of flags or any flags that you want charged to your account here at our Rotary Club, please use this form so that it's charged to your account and you don't need to go online. But it's always best and easiest for everyone concerned to be able to go online. Anyway, now I have a very distinct pleasure to make a very special announcement. But let me give you a little bit of background first. At the last Field of Honor, many of you will remember that Congressman Carter came to the field and spent quite a bit of time with us. I think he was going to do a quick stop by, shake hands, and move on to the next venue. But he was so deeply touched by the Field of Honor that he stayed the rest of the day and into the evening in the Vietnam veteran event, the tribute that evening. And it was just wonderful. Well, following our Field of Honor, I was given a phone call from Congressman Carter's office inviting me to serve a 3-year term for the Congressional Veterans Commendation Program. And what that entails, next slide please. What the CVC, as it's known for short, is that it's a program that's designed to recognize and honor veterans' military service and then their continued efforts and work in the community following their military career. So we're looking for exceptional people who are not only great in exemplifying their military service, but what they've done with their lives and for their communities since that. The selected honorees are then recognized by Congressman Carter at an event, and it will be coming up in October. And this event is one that you will all be invited to. So how are they chosen? It's a nominations-based program, and those nominations are submitted with an application with some extensive research in them. And that brings you back to my role sitting on Congressman Carter's Veterans Commendation Board. So as I considered who on earth within Georgetown, I'm the Georgetown representative for this program, there was one person that came to mind. But their background was so extensive and so enormous that I had no idea just how to consolidate it into 2 pages of a nomination form. How do you take someone's life that has so many accomplishments and put it into 2 pages? I enlisted the help of one of our Rotarians, who is a friend of the person that I nominated, which all of us are his friend. Billy Ray Stubblefield helped me to initiate that process of putting it into 2 pages, which was a task. First, let me tell you what the eligibility requirements are. That person has to reside in the 31st District of Texas. They must have served in active duty in the United States Armed Forces or as a reservist called to active duty. And they must have retired honorably and been honorably discharged. So with that in mind, Billy Ray Stubblefield helped me put this nomination together. It is my distinct pleasure to share with you, and then I will ask Billy Ray to come up and maybe share a couple of thoughts, but also to bring our nominee and award recipient out of hundreds of nominations. I will tell you that the nominee and recipient, as one of 9 in the 31st Congressional District, is our own Dr. Gonzalo Garza. Is coming up with Dr. Garza. Let me share just a few notes out of the nomination that we wrote. Billy Ray helped a lot. Dr. Gonzalo Garza, an American patriot, a Marine, a distinguished lifelong educator, Rotarian, community leader, and man of great faith, and a loyal dedication to his family, including 3 children and many, many friends. Like many here, I'm fortunate and proud to know him as my good friend in the Rotary Club of Georgetown. Dr. Garza is by all accounts an exceptional American hero. His distinguished military service as a United States Marine, both in World War II and the Korean War, is punctuated by a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star, among many, many other medals and awards. He was even recognized in other parts of the world, receiving a World War II Medallion for Valor from the Mayor of Saipan and the Ambassador of Peace Award from the Republic of South Korea in 2014. As a civilian, Gonzalo has had a very accomplished professional life as an educator, a leader in academia, and especially for underprivileged children. His record of service to the community is exemplified by the numerous awards and recognition he has received and continues to receive. Gonzalo is a humble, unassuming man who seeks only to serve others above self. His coat of honor is displayed at a school that is named after him, Gonzalo Garza High School. That coat of honor reads, "Demonstrate personal honor and integrity at all times. Choose peace over conflict. Respect others and ourselves." Dr. Garza has been an exemplary Rotarian, living the motto of service above self and living up to the four-way test. He served as a district governor in the Eagles Pass Club in Austin, 1995 and 96. And he has served in many Rotary leadership roles up to the present as a valued member of the Rotary Club of Georgetown. He's also a distinguished Paul Harris Fellow and has had perfect attendance at club meetings for over 35 years, I believe, serving the community through projects, contributions, and participation in everything Rotary does. I can't begin to imagine anyone who has served his country and his community more honorably, not only once but twice as a Marine, and as well as selflessly serving throughout his life, with both personally and professionally through a distinguished professional life, impacting the lives of many children, adults, and communities whose lives he has enriched. His numerous recognitions and awards are just partial evidence of his contributions, as well as his impeccable character and integrity. Most importantly, he is a man dedicated to faith in God, to his family, and to his many friends. So when asked to nominate someone who demonstrated both exemplary military service and continued service in his civilian life, I didn't have to go very far. You, my dear friend, Gonzalo Garza, are the quintessential nominee and made my job easy. To select, and now he has been selected as one of 10 recipients for the Congressional Veterans Commendation Award in the 31st Congressional District, an award that will remain in the halls of Washington forever. So, finally, if we can have the last slide, there is an invitation for all of you to attend the Commendation Awards ceremony October 13th at 2 o'clock at Texas A&M in Killeen. This is open to all Rotarians and everybody who loves Gonzalo Garza. If I could ask first Billy Ray to say just quickly a couple of words, and then we will introduce our wonderful nominee and recipient of the Congressional Veterans Commendation Award.
Was delighted when Jeannie asked me to assist with the project to name you an outstanding veteran. One of the things that you need to realize, the 31st Congressional District is the home of the largest Army base, I think, in the world. Russians may have something hidden away somewhere, but as a result, there are a lot of veterans that live in this district, a lot of distinguished individuals. So the naming of you as one of these distinguished veterans is an even higher honor than it would be in another congressional district. You are my friend, and I want you to know that it has been my honor to know you. I will never forget you as long as I live. Perhaps I'll see you on the other side. But I want the rest of you to know that Gonzalo is a vicious poker player. And, it's quite an honor to be a part of this effort to honor you for what you've done. And let me tell you all just a couple of little stories. Gonzalo dropped out of high school, became a Marine, and went off to war. He was sent to the Pacific. He was involved in the island hopping, and those of you who know a little bit about World War II history, you know that the battle for Okinawa was particularly vicious. There's a movie recently made called, I think, Hacksaw Ridge. That'll tell you a little bit about the fighting that went on there. It was the defense of one of the home islands for the Japanese, and they were particularly courageous in their defense of that, and a lot of good Marines and soldiers in the Army died in taking that island. So he came home and decided to get his GED. He didn't stop there. He went on to get an undergraduate degree. He was called up to the Korean War, and that's where he was wounded. That's where he received, I believe this is correct, Gonzalo, the Bronze Star. He served with the Congressional Medal of Honor winner, one of his best friends, Navy Corporal. And that's something that Gonzalo is particularly proud of, the fact that he knew that Navy Corps. But then he came back to the United States, continued to pursue his education. He got his master's, and later his PhD in education. He was an assistant superintendent down in Harris County during the integration of school district. I've got to wrap it up. There's just so much to tell about Gonzalo Garza. At any rate, he got his high school diploma somewhat belatedly. It was given to him by Gonzalo Garza High School.
As Lou Gehrig once said, I feel to be the luckiest man in the world. And I have been blessed with a lot of luck, a lot of good friends, and to them I say thank you, and I thank Dr. McClellan and Judge Tubblefield for beginning the road for this honor, and I'm sure that so many other people are worthy of it too. I have struggled, being a cotton picker, dropping out of junior high school that the judge mentioned, and then having the strong will to move on. And I say, well, there is a will, I want to be in it. Thank you again so much. This is a wonderful club. I've been in many clubs before, but I chose Georgetown Rotary Club as one of the finest because of its people, because of its commitment to serve others above self. Again, thank you so much for this honor.
much, Jeannie, and thank you, Dr. Garza. That was very, very wonderful. And we've got to keep that date on our calendars, y'all, so we can have a good showing there. Okay, I'm going to ask Dr. Ron Swain to please come and introduce our program.
Thank you, President Wilson. I regret that Bob Brent is not here this afternoon because several years ago, Bob kind of threw down the gauntlet when he served as chair of the board of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. And he said, one day, Georgetown will become a city of excellence of 100,000 people. And he talked about the 4 cornerstones. Well, we're almost at 100,000. And at this juncture, we're looking at a long-range plan going forward to get us to become that community of excellence. A few years ago, as we looked at the issues and conditions in our city, we suggested that Georgetown not only be a city of excellence, but a city of compassion. And so our city council has adopted a city vision, Georgetown's new vision statement, a caring community, honoring our past and innovating the future. And to help lead us through that process, I'm delighted to present Sophia Nelson and Susan Watkins. Time will not allow me to introduce them formally, but suffice it to say that they are professionals in their fields and they're leading us in this effort. Sophia, Susan, would you come? Thank you. Let's welcome them.
Thank you all for having us. My name is Sophia Nelson. About 3 years ago, I was given the distinct privilege of being able to serve as your planning director. Over the last 3 years, I think one of the things that has made me the most proud of being here in Georgetown is what I see a lot in the nonprofits, which is and the question that people ask themselves continuously of how do I make Georgetown a better place? And how do we continue to make it thrive? And so in our small way, as city staff, this is our long-range plan of working towards always keeping the next step ahead of us and say, how do we continue to retain the charm that brought people and kept people here, and how do we continue to expand on it so that the folks like Bob Brent and others who really invested their time to say, we are going to be a city of excellence, that we help the community get there. We can never do it ourselves, and we'll never expect to do it ourselves. It's with the grace of people like you that are asking how we can make Georgetown better. And so what we hope to share with you a little bit today is a little bit about our plan, why we're planning now, and then I'll turn it over to Susan, who will specifically ask you how you can get involved in this process. Our project team here is made up of the City of Georgetown and our two consultants that we've hired on this project, Freeze and Nichols and Community Development Strategies. But I'd like to draw your attention to the other names and symbols that you see here on the slide. That includes the Georgetown Ministerial Alliance, the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, GISD, Georgetown Health Foundation. These have all been SEGC, the Southeast Georgetown Coalition. These have been great partners to us as we are moving into this communication and outreach phase that Susan will tell you about. But in order to make a plan more than a plan, we really need the community to get involved, and we've been fortunate to have partners in this group. May I ask you to turn to the next slide, oops. So what we're working on right now, I think I'm going too fast, there we go, is our comprehensive plan. As Dr. Swain said, this is our long-range plan. We're looking at year 2030. One of our staff made a good reference point for me that I think may help. It is the year that the kindergartners this year and that are in school will graduate from high school. And so keep that in context. We're planning for them, but we're also planning for how do we bring them back? It's not only how do we keep this great community, how do we continue to make this a community that they're proud of when they're bringing home folks from college or bringing in new people in their life to meet their family, to show them where they grew up, to bring them back to their hometown with pride. And how do we continue to attract others to have that same passion that we have for our community? Our comprehensive plan is not a set of rules. and rigid requirements. Our comprehensive plan is intended to be a large vision that is really guided by policies and growth statements for how the community wants to grow, what type of growth they want to have, and what are the general areas they want to see it at. Our map here, and it's maybe hard for some of you to see it in the back. This is our future land use plan, and this is a lot of what I go back to council with every other week and say, here's what your plan says as you're making decisions. But I'd like to call this our view from, if you're looking from an airplane down at Georgetown, where different uses will be laid out. And this is really important from a standpoint of, as you're looking for more commercial to come near your residential, as you're looking at where those major thoroughfares are going. This is where, this is the plan that city staff goes back to. This is what we remind council. This is what we remind our planning commission of. And they are the ones who are making decisions on behalf of the community on where developments should be approved and where they should be located. Our city charter calls for a long-range plan, and this is a great aspect to have because this requires the community to have a plan in place when making decisions that affect all of us. In the end, how our communities are laid out, how transportation flows, where our schools go, the quality of our development, that is what makes Georgetown, aside from the great people, the quality of our life depends on much of this long-range vision that's in place and the implementation of that vision. You'll hear us talk a lot about implementation because from a planning perspective, you can have a great plan. You can actually have a great vision like council has set forward for us. But if it's not implemented and it is not carried out with implementable steps, it is simply a plan that's sitting on the shelf. So one of our major aspects that we're working through is not only to have a plan because our charter says it, because it's good practice, but also to have a plan that every day we're working towards. Every year I'm going back to council, which is the mission in the community. As much as I'm asking for your help in this effort, I want to come back year after year and tell you, what are we doing to make this plan right? How have you got involved to shape the community? And that is ultimately what it's about, more than just the plan itself. A lot of times we get asked the question, well, why are you doing it now? What is it that you feel like, since the last plan was adopted in 2008, why are you working on it now? And I'll start first by talking about the vision that Dr. Swain shared with you. This was just updated by our city council. And so we now have a guiding vision for where we are going, and we need to incorporate that vision into our comprehensive plan. Along with that vision, council established some strategies that revolved around the growth and development of the community. This, I'm sorry, it's going to be hard to see, but maybe I can share it with you instead of playing it at this moment, since it'll be difficult for you guys to see at your seats. This was a time lapse of our community and how it's grown from 1890 all the way out to 2000. What you'll see, if that was working, what I was going to try to show is to demonstrate how the community has grown spatially from the core it is right now in the historic, all the way out, pushing out a little bit more to the east and to the north, then crossing over to I-35, moving out towards Williams. And this is what we look like over a time period. You can see some blotches coming up right now, and maybe you can see that from your chairs, but this was really exciting for us to put together to see how has growth taken place both along the interstate or key corridors and then moving out to demonstrate just how much we've grown. But I don't have to tell you, you've seen it in the newspaper for from 2013, 2014, we have been in the top 5, if not the top fastest growing communities for cities over 50,000. You see that when you go to the grocery store, you see it when you drive down Williams Drive, you see it in our schools that are continuing to expand. You see it in southeast Georgetown, where you once saw farmland and ranch land, you see houses going up and subdivisions going up, and we see it in the need that the school has when they're looking for a bond and can say, our schools are growing so rapidly. This is what's happening. Every year, our department does an end-of-the-year report, and we generally look at what is Georgetown looking like today. And we've done that for the last 3 or 4 years. And what that helps us with is to really be able to say, okay, this is what the average age was when we looked at the community last year. This is the population of the year before. One of the new aspects that we started measuring this year and that we'll enter into with our comprehensive plan is looking at it from a housing affordability standpoint. One of the measures you'll see there where it says 29.2% was the percentage of the community that was living with house burden. And by what I mean by that is they're spending more than 30% of their income on housing. And so one of the aspects of our comprehensive plan is to say, what is the state of housing in Georgetown? What is the state of people paying more than that 30%? Where's their need? Is there a need for affordable housing? And then taking it a step further and not just saying, is there a need? Yes, there's a need. This is what the need looks like. But having a toolkit, an implementation kit to say, here are some steps that we can take as a community if we continue to want to invest in this. Over time, we've seen growth continue to climb up there on population projections and growth looking back. What we've started looking like also is we have our city limit growth. We're generally about a 60,000, 62,000, 65,000 population. But we're starting to measure also is as you go down 29, you see a lot of subdivisions from when you stop at Deemingwood and you go all the way out to Ronald Reagan. That's our ETJ. That's about a 2.5-mile area outside our city limits that for a period of time you saw 1-acre lots, you saw very rural area. Now you're starting to see full subdivisions. And I bring this up because no longer are we just planning for the city limits of Georgetown. We're looking at this area outside where we're growing and growing in a fashion that we haven't always in the past. So really, when people ask how big is this community of Georgetown, I say we're planning for an 88,000 population. That is our city limits and our ETJ. That is our planning area. And so the idea of getting to 100,000 is no longer just some goal that we're going to get to at some point. This is within our near future, considering how much growth we have. What is the process for completing this update? In these first few slides, I'll go over and then I'll turn it over to Susan here. There were 3 guiding principles that Council gave to us. The first was to have a robust public involvement process. They said, and this was in part the reason that we're here today, they said, Sophia, staff, we don't want you just to hold a meeting at the library where the same 12 people come. They said, you need to get out to where people are at and where they're meeting already. So as a result of that, we've gone to Music on the Square, we've got it on the Bookmobile, we've gone out to the Rec Center, we've gone out to different civic and nonprofit meetings just like this. And we are asking, we're telling the story about our plan, asking for involvement. But they said, make sure that you involve people at all levels. We've gone out to our youth advisory board meeting and said, we're planning for your future here in Georgetown. Get involved. They told us to have a fiscally informed plan, which is essentially our implementation plan. They said, don't just plan for the sake of planning. You make sure you have an implementation plan that we can set a fiscally informed plan and procedures in place and tie money to some of this implementation moving forward so that it's just not a goal that's set out there. And the last part they said was make sure this is a coordinated effort with all our partners in the city and the community through all the different plans and other elements that are out there, the parks plan, the transportation plan. And they said make sure you're talking to each of those plans and, as we're moving forward. So our process is really, this whole slide is summed up in a way of saying we start first with our technical advisory committee, we move out into doing a steering committee, and our steering committee is made up of representatives throughout the community. We move forward into sharing that information with Joint Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. We go out to the public and share what we have done technically, and then we move on back. we go back and we share with the council and the steering committee members and our technical advisory committees what we have learned from the community. Our project calendar right now has us in a place where we are getting the word out there on outreach. We're doing technical studies. Our space right now is understanding the state of Georgetown. We hear a lot of different concerns as we move forward. We hear concerns about affordable housing. We hear concerns about where is the commercial going? Do we have too little commercial? Are there corridors that we have to save more for different employment centers? And so what we are doing right now is getting a good snapshot of what is the state of the city. How does this southeast Georgetown part of town look different from the northwest quadrant? What are the benefits that they have in terms of housing diversity, housing cost, looking at different land use patterns? That's the process we're in right now in terms of getting a general state of the city. This is the part where we're really here to tell you. I've given you a good overview of what our plan is and how we're using it, but I'd like to turn it over to Susan now to talk about how we would like to get you involved moving forward.
Thank you so much, Sophia. I'm Susan Watkins. I'm the housing coordinator, and I work under Sophia in the planning department. I feel very privileged to be a part of this big project that only happens every so often for the planning department. And my background is in education and is in planning, and part of that call is to engage the community in the planning process, since it affects everyone that lives here. And so we have taken some efforts to provide opportunities in various ways for the community to get involved. Let's see if this goes to the next slide. So we, at the start of this, created a public engagement plan. The right side of your screen is a snapshot of 2030.georgetown.org. Where you can find our goals and strategies, and then some of the opportunities that we have for the public. And one of the goals that we have is to get representative input. And so we're really trying to talk to people that we hadn't maybe talked to in the past about what they see for the future of the community. So far, as Sophia mentioned, we've gone out, we've had steering committee meetings, we've had our technical advisory committees meetings, and then we've met with our boards and commissions. The city of Georgetown has about 26 boards and commissions, I believe, and so we've spoken to a lot of them, and then we've gone to a lot of groups just like yours to tell them about the plan and let them know how to get involved. We do have a survey that's available online at that link, and so far we've gotten such rapid response that now we have over 1,300 responses to our survey. And the survey, this next slide, oh gosh, ask questions like, why did you choose to live in Georgetown? So that we get a good understanding of the things that are important to the community, things that people want to preserve about the community as we move forward over these next 10 years and planning for 2030. And then also, what are the things that people would like to see in the community as we grow? And so this survey is still open. On the 2030.georgetown.org page, there's a button that has red poppies on it. If you click that button, you can access the survey. And we encourage everyone to please take it if you get a chance. As we move into public meetings, planning processes always have public meetings. But because of the instruction and direction we got from council, we looked across the country to some models of community participation to try to mix it up a little bit. And so for this first public meeting, we're trying out a public engagement strategy that a few other communities have tried, and that is instead of, like Sophia mentioned, just having one centrally located meeting, it's having many meetings that are convenient for people to attend. It's a one-day public engagement event, and it's happening this Tuesday, so this is perfect timing for us to come and let you guys know about some of the times and locations of those meetings. This strategy in other communities has been called On the Table, so we're using that branding here, and really the idea is that we're getting all of the ideas of the community on the table, and all of those ideas will be considered as we're planning for the future. We have a video here of how this worked in Lexington, Kentucky, where they had an amazing participation rate as the city partnered with their Chamber of Commerce and also their school district to get people involved. And so we've kind of modeled that here where we, as you saw, partnered with lots of organizations in the community to try to help us get as much participation as possible. So if you can, I think we're going to try to load the video here, and it kind of gives you a better idea of how this looks.
The biggest one-day community engagement event in Georgetown will take place on October 2nd.
We're calling this day-long event On the Table.
It will be a day to gather with your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, share a meal, and put your ideas for the future of Georgetown on the table.
There are a couple of ways to get involved. You can sign up to host your own discussion or attend one of the many on-the-table events taking place all around Georgetown.
If you can't make the discussions at those locations, make sure you're at National Night Out, which just happens to be on the same day as On the Table.
Don't miss out on this great opportunity to meet your neighbors, help shape the future of Georgetown, as well as forge relationships with law enforcement and elected officials.
Let's meet on the table to share your voice and shape our community.
Su voz importa.
The next slide, and these are some of the locations, and it's a little bit small here, but we, if you go to the website, the 2030.georgetown.org, all of these locations, and actually many more as people have signed up, are listed. Starting at 7 a.m., you can go to the Chamber of Commerce before work, and there's an opportunity to engage in the discussion, which will really get at the issues we see in Georgetown, and then again, like we said, some of the things that we want to make sure that we keep intact here. The Georgetown Young Professionals will be after that. The Southeast Georgetown Community Council is hosting 2 sessions at 10 and then 2. You can go to the library from 4 to 5, and then in the evening there's the Ministerial Alliance is hosting at the Gethsemane Center, and then Southwestern University is opening their doors to the community surrounding them, and also their students. They have about 60 students that are excited to participate in this. So we really hope if you are available on October 2nd, that you can go to one of these locations. If you can't, you can also download the information off our website and engage in this discussion at your own home with your own family, and send that information back to us.
So thank you very much for your time. If it's October 2nd, October 1st, October 5th, at some point, please have a conversation with your friends and family, those folks sitting at your table now. The questions we're really getting at is, why did you move here to Georgetown? What has kept you here? What are those things that you brag about when you meet with other people that don't live here? This is all going to shape not only where our land uses go, we're looking at our gateways. How do we create those special places? When I invite my family here, I say, don't follow Google. Let me find you a good path to come here. And I may say, get off on 130 and come through the southeast part of town so you can see the farms, or come off Austin and I wrap them through the southwestern campus. Those gateways are our gateways coming in as we're welcoming people. So whether it's future land use, whether it's the state of housing, whether it's the gateways into our community, please get involved. Please have a conversation. Even if at some point you don't submit it to us, this is a great conversation to have with your neighbors about why Georgetown is Georgetown. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. We have a regular thing that we do here at Rotary. We ask our speakers to sign a book, and then we give it to Pearl Elementary. So if you ladies would do that for me before you leave, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. I've taken the survey. I don't know, how many of you have taken the survey online? Anybody done it yet? Well, go online and do that. It's really interesting. And when you get to the question of what does Georgetown look like in 2030, you go, oh my gosh, I don't know. You know, that really took some thought to put into that. So make sure you do that, and make sure you come to one of those meetings. I think it's an opportunity to be involved, which we all love. I want to make another announcement. Gerald Elementary Early Act First Night is holding a knighting ceremony Wednesday, October the 10th. That Early Act First Night program is supported by the Sun City Rotary Club. So please, if you can, go support them as well. It's all important stuff. Are there any other announcements for the good of Rotary? Yes.
Yes, I'm going to have an education session next Friday at 11 o'clock. One of these meeting rooms right here.
Okay, next Friday, 11 o'clock, in one of the rooms back there, we're going to have an orientation for new members. Okay, excellent. Any other announcements? All right, if you all would please join me in saying the things that we think, say, and do. First. Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will build goodwill and let our friendship.
And fourth. Will be beneficial to all concerned. Thank you all so much. We're adjourned.